Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Stargirl. Season 1, Episode 9 is called Brainwave. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. So yeah, Cindy after being dragged into the sewers, has been put in a cell, and basically threatens to kill her father unless he lets her out. And he responds
And he's
with,
having none of it.
well, he gasses her. You know, he says, that'll work on her. But she does reveal that she killed her mother. That was a detail that wasn't quite there before, is that she's the one responsible for her mother's death.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much it's going to be like a she was, she died in childbirth sort of situation. And she's just kind of using it, to drive a wedge at her father. I don't know. Feels like that sort of thing could be the case.
I read it completely literal, and that she popped her blade and slit her mother's throat. We'll find out, I suppose.
I mean, it could be that she was born with the blades, and it was like during childbirth, cut her way out essentially.
Oh yeah, because
we could be both right here.
Because that's totally less gruesome and terrific. But I thought I did a sort of dark spin to her character, that she's already a murderer. It's one thing that, okay, she's a up-and-coming villain, she wants to be part of the team, but maybe she's not actually taking anyone's life yet, so it's like, if she actually does it, it's going to be this shock to the system of like, oh shit, I've made a huge mistake. If she's already murdered her own mother, then, well, she's already past that line. She's already deep into the evil shit. So mention that. Obviously, the big thing from this episode is probably the dinner scene more than anything else, and the build up to it, the fallout from it. I think the pacing of Barbara finding out about stuff is basically spot on in terms of kind of what we were talking about, how long we expected him. We said, there'll probably be an episode where he keeps trying to tell her and it doesn't, if anything, I may have expected another one of those. But no, at the end of this episode, I mean, she doesn't know everything yet. We're getting that next episode, obviously. Unless I don't know how they explain the staff. Because Barbara walks in, the staff's all lit up and floating around on its own.
It's floating, yeah.
And then the laugh of the scene, of course, is when it just sort of plays dead at the end, where it just sort of turns off and just drops. Which just makes her scream more, because it's just reacted to her.
Yeah, it's funny.
It's a pretty good scene. But, yeah, so that stuff's solid. But the big thing, of course, is that Jordan and his family, including Cameron, came over for dinner. I have to admit, I was cracking up at the evil grandparents basically saying evil shit in Norwegian throughout the dinner, because they like a little grace, a little Norwegian grace at the start, and it ends with like, and made the blood of my enemies flow. So it was something like that at the end of it. And everyone
sounds
else
suitably Norwegian to everyone else. And they're like, so whatever.
I don't know. We may have mentioned this before, but I don't know if it was intentional. It probably is. That icicle is Scandinavian. I was like, is this sort of supposed to be loosely frost giant, like tying in kind of thing?
I'm sure it is, thematically, if nothing else. I don't think we mentioned it, but yeah.
Is it Norwegian in the comics, which is probably why I've never thought of it before?
I don't know if he's usually just covered in ice in the comics.
Yeah.
And don't really think about his ethnicity and his heritage that much.
No, if anything in the comics, I feel like he's not even usually... Because here they're playing him up as the villainous leader, who's the smart one, who's suave and all that. I feel like in the comics he tends to be a bit more... I don't want to quite say jokey. Icicle Jr. is definitely jokey, but he tends to be kind of part of a team.
He tends to play the muscle.
Yeah. So, which isn't... None of this is a complaint per se. I'm fine with them elevating, a couple of villains.
Hey, when you're working with a show which is generally, all right, we're using, for the most part, B-listers, you got to elevate someone.
B-listers might be generous in many of the cases.
It might indeed.
But yeah, so we have the big thing here, of course, which is that Courtney goes to get some food out of the oven. It makes a point of saying it's piping hot. She can't touch the plate.
I kind of hated this moment actually, because it's in the oven. The oven's still on, and it's in there. And she reaches into the oven and picks it up, and then it's like, oh, that's hot. I'm like, yeah, no shit, it's hot. And then she goes and gets the oven glove and takes it in, and I get the whole point is to show us that it's hot, so that it's when he touches it and it's fine, it's suspicious, but there's got to have been a better way to do this. Show some steam coming off. I don't know, but just Like, no one is stupid enough to reach into an oven that is on and try and take something out of it and go, oh yeah, it's hot. What was I thinking?
I'll be honest, I think you're overestimating the human race. I think there's several people I know who would reach for it and then burn themselves and then think, oh, I wonder how that happened, because you're a goddamn idiot. That's how it happened.
Okay. Okay, fine. Some people might. However, the show has built up Courtney to a point where I would not expect her to do something like that.
I mean, that's fair, but I totally buy those people.
Okay, people are idiots. What do you want me to say?
Yeah, that did not strike me as unrealistic that someone would do this. But I did like the moment itself where he touched it, because he sort of he was caught off guard and not even thinking about it. He was just kind of, because the dog was barking at something at Pat, and it was kind of this moment.
Just took what was handed to him without even thinking about it.
Yeah, and I like that she does just jump to Acicle. It's like, he must be Acicle because of the temperature thing. I mean, obviously, I would jump to, oh, he's a metahuman. He's some kind of villain. He's a member of the Injustice Society. But I did kind of like that she jumped to Acicle. It means,
there's a logic to it.
I mean, there's room for it to be someone else, but it is probably the most likely answer. So
yeah, if it's going, well, that was hot and he didn't feel it, so he must be really cold, or fine with it. It makes sense. There's a logic to her thought process. She does get there really fast, admittedly.
More low key thing I liked during the dinner scene though, was every time Jordan said something, they referred to him and Barbara as we, where he's talking about our dreams for the town and what we believe in as his family values, and there was just this little thing where it wasn't super antagonistic, but Pat was picking up on it a little bit. There was all these little sort of like smiling and nodding along from Pat, but there was just a little bit behind the smile that said he was kind of noticing the way these lines were delivered. It was just, it was in a way that never made Pat come off as some sort of jealous weirdo, just kind of like, no, he's definitely sensing something here. There's something in the subtext that's been put across.
He's not wrong.
Yes, and I think Jordan's picked Barbara for his next wife because his parents seem to be in the same way that Jordan kind of like says to Courtney, oh, hey, you're the one my son's been talking about, I approve. It felt like his parents had already decided that they approve of Barbara. Although, yes, as also mentioned, that her daughter is bothering me though.
Yeah. They were funny. Just constantly these jibes and barbs.
Yeah, in Norwegian, of course, so it was all subtitled, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was all that stuff was pretty solid. Jordan, of course, is all excited because his big plans coming to fruition. Dragon King's got a device almost ready. They've got Brainwave Jr. is going to be the one to, of course, power the whole thing. We'll get to him and his stuff in a minute. But they're basically going to brainwash the entire country and just force their great America on everyone, I suppose, for lack of a better term.
I thought you were going to be way more on the nose with it. I'll let you off.
Just on the nose enough.
Just you got the word "great" in there and went, that'll do.
Just a bop in the nose. Doesn't have to be that doesn't have to be like a proper punch to the nose. Just a little bop in the nose, just to get the point across.
Yeah. So point across.
Yes. So that is that was the villain setup stuff. And of course, Henry's stuff was far more interesting in a lot of ways because it was the finding the tapes, all of his father's tapes, and getting the flashback to the first time Brainwave killed someone. And he was quite this feeble scientist. He was very scared. But of course, he hears that the gunman who's trying to steal his car is going to shoot him anyway because no one will miss you, kind of thing. And he essentially gives him an aneurysm. And throughout watching these tapes, Henry starts practicing his telekinesis more. And there's actually a kind of an upbeat moment where there's like a song playing. There's like a montage of him like floating tapes around, and
it's strange because I'm like, we're supposed to still be under the assumption that he's villainous or going to be villainous. So seeing him like rooting for it's presented as we're rooting for him figuring this out with the music. It's a little jarring.
I feel like it's actually not as one-sided as that sounded, just because this episode, I think, very clearly, okay, he's got reasons to go evil, and one of the big reasons, of course, much like his father says in the tapes, is that a lot of people's thoughts are not nice. When you have no reason to pretend, like a lot of people's thoughts, the nurse who comes into the room is like, oh, this guy is, they should just turn off the ventilator, he's a piece of shit. Like, that was basically his attitude.
There
And
was the one like pushing, and there was a guy pushing his mother in a wheelchair.
yeah.
I hope she hurries and die, and I can get the house. Oh, and the car too.
Yeah, it's kind of goes back to what we were saying last episode about when Courtney and Cindy were fighting, and Cindy's thoughts were a lot more kind of pure and well natured, shall we say. And Courtney comes to speak to him, wanting to recruit him, and kind of essentially admits that she's Stargirl without saying in so many words.
I mean, there's only so much she can hide from someone who's reading her thoughts.
Very true, very true. And even he finds out that she's kind of responsible for his dad's coma, but she tries to make it clear, what the circumstances were and who the Injustice Society are, and that they kill people. And Henry is going kind of full villainous when he's like, everyone they've killed deserves it. But she brings up the kid, the kid from episode 3, and Henry admits now he was a good kid. It's this because I feel like the actual battle for which side Henry's going to join, it's a lot more kind of on the surface. I was kind of expecting, okay, he's going to go villainous, and then there'll be a turning point. There'll be something that turns him around. I feel the fact that they're actually having a fight for it, where Courtney's trying to convince him of the good things, his father's trying to convince him of the bad things. I'm almost singing that song, but.
Yeah, she's just straight up trying to recruit him to the JSA before the ISA again.
And he's getting really upset, and when he starts to the hospital's about to start to implode, she's like, "Oh, you know what? I'll go, but when you're ready to talk to me, when you've thought about this and you've processed your feelings, you can come see me." And of course, the end of the episode is he does kind of do a dark thing, although not like intentional to a point. But I don't necessarily think he actually wanted to kill the person at the end.
No, I think he loses control a bit.
Yeah. It's kind of whenever they use superpowers as kind of a parallel for drugs or something like that. This idea of like going too far and losing control or something of that nature. The power consuming, all that jazz. But this lawyer comes and is wanting to take his dad off the ventilators and claims it's his dad's wishes. He's got letters and documents and he wants his signature and all that. But you can hear his thoughts, and his thoughts are like, "Oh, I'm glad I rigged this. I really need this payday."
Yeah, need this cash.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, you're lying," and he's like, "God damn it, I'm such a bad liar."
Yeah.
So again, even in this moment of like, this guy's a proper scumbag. This clearly feels like a moment where he's leaning towards the villainy, but it's still a little bit funny.
Yeah. And then, of course, Brainwave wakes up. Seems a little bit confused. I don't know if they're actually going to go down some sort of weird amnesia route here, or if it's just a sort of waking up and be like, "Oh, where am I? What's going on?"
I suspect the latter, but I could be wrong.
But the one thing I did like about all this, I mean, not the one thing, I mean, I thought a lot of it was generally enjoyable. But I like kind of Cindy's speech, because when Henry tells her that, hey, if you could hear what people were thinking all the time, they're awful.
You mean Courtney?
What did I say?
You did this. You said Cindy. You said it a couple of minutes ago as well. I let it slide, but
like Courtney, you know what I mean? Stargirl, the lead, the lead, the heroic one, right? And she basically gives this speech about how, yeah, okay, so people think bad things. People think bad things all the time, but you can't necessarily hold something bad against them. Most bad things that pop into someone's head, they're just that. They're just thoughts that you have. It's part of the human brain is to do the right thing. You have to process all the bad thoughts that might jump there first, right? You have to, think these dark things and whatever. But deep down, most people are good, and most people will do the right thing ultimately. Partly because they're not been forced to confront the consequences of some of these bad things, and sometimes it's just something that's obviously never going to happen. It's just in fact, me and Tara just did a Twilight Zone recently about a guy who could read minds for an episode, and he thought someone was going to rob the bank because this old guy who works there was talking about robbing the bank and going to the Bahamas or whatever. But it turns out that he has this daydream every day. This is just something he thinks about. He likes to think about it when he's at his job and he's bored every day, and that was the whole little twist of the episode.
Who hasn't thought about killing a manager or something along those lines? I mean, we've all had those thoughts. Just you're obviously not gonna do it. It's just, you could for just a second.
Yeah, or a podcast co-host, for example. Just
I'm very familiar with that thought. Yeah,
off the top of my head. So no, I kind of like this little speech. It was kind of this, okay, like people have dark sides and they have like initial thoughts, but most of the people who think these things aren't actually going to ever act on them or anything like that. So, and it feels like she's kind of getting through to him in points, but he's obviously still in a very dark place. So if there's anything that makes me think he might actually ultimately turn evil, it's because there's actually a fight for him back and forth now, kind of in the narrative.
Possibly, and I think Yolanda didn't really help the situation.
No, so Yolanda is not too happy about the thought of asking Henry to join, and I'm still expecting a little reveal here where he didn't send the photos around.
We're still like pretty sure it was Cindy, right?
Yeah, yeah, because I mean he does have a line in this where he says like, "Oh, you think I should die for what I did to you?" But I feel like he's still kind of covering for Cindy or
I don't
whatever.
even think he necessarily knows what happened.
Yeah.
I think he obviously feels good because I think if I recall the episode, he definitely showed it to like a couple of his friends.
Yeah, yeah.
So he feels guilty because he's not completely clean. He knows that. But he doesn't understand how it got everywhere. But he feels responsible because he's just like, well, it must have. I had the picture, so it must have been me somehow.
Yeah. I think the scene's a little bit over the top. Yolanda goes proper
Grabs
Batman.
him from. Yeah.
Yeah, she goes proper Batman. She's up in the ceiling. She's like, "Stay away from Cindy." Sorry, Courtney. I caught myself that time. Right? So stay away from Courtney. Blah blah blah. And I thought, man, she's been full on like Dark Knight here, but of course, there is actually a nice little touch to this scene where he's like, "Oh, so what you think I deserve to die?" And she's like, "Well, read my thoughts." And then she intentionally, because she knows he's reading her thoughts, she's like, "Oh, I could slash you right now and you'd bleed out." And it's really dark. But then she keeps going and she's like, I hated you, I trusted you, I loved you. And I get the impression that they never actually said they loved each other in the relationship, and that was probably
not
a bit of a moment for him hearing that.
Yeah.
So I like the scene's a little bit cheesy at a glance, and she's being, because we've not seen that much of her in the suit really. So having her like do this full on like intimidation, like swear to me, style of scene, it's kind of fun. Bit funny, and maybe not necessarily for all the right reasons, but I can't say I didn't enjoy it.
Definitely didn't help the situation with convincing him that to join their side.
No, but at the same time, that little bit at the end that she let slip is kind of like enough where he might actually have the nuance to realize she's intentionally thinking the most awful things because she's hurt, right? It's not just that she's evil.
This obviously comes right after Courtney's speech to him.
Yeah.
Where she said some of the reasons people think these things are because they're afraid or they're hurt. So, that'll be fresh in his mind. You would hope.
Yeah. So, yeah, some interesting advancements there. Obviously, the next episode is called Brainwave Junior. I feel like the titles of this episode and the next episode could have not necessarily swapped, but it feels like it's almost redundant which way around they are. It feels like they're just a two-part. It's gonna be just Brainwave Part 1 and 2 for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
But especially given that the actual Brainwave wakes up at the end and is ready to go next time.
Yeah.
There was one little detail that I thought was worth pointing out though, is on one of the tapes, Brainwave's talking about he was watching this guy was like staring at a girl in the subway and was thinking all these like horrible things, and he ended up killing him because he kept getting like pains in his head, and the pain actually went away once he'd killed him. It was like a relief. It was like so Brainwave seems to have some kind of thing where actually killing someone relieves pressure in his head or something like that. Or whatever they're doing with it. I'm not entirely sure yet, but
yeah, it kind of was likened to like a drug thing again for me. The need and that kind of urge, but once it was satisfied, that would do it for a time.
Yeah, do you think he like feeds off it's not so much that it's pain of what they're doing, it's more just he's feeding off like the life force when he kills someone that way. Like he's
could be.
Yeah. They could go down that path.
Could be.
Super dark. Meanwhile, Beth and Rick, although Rick's not really helping that much, he's kind of wanting to do his own thing, but they're looking through some books to try and figure out about this tunnel system, which obviously has been revealed over the last couple of episodes to the heroes, and basically find out that this town was kind of built this way intentionally, and that's probably why the Injustice Society chose this town to be their base, because they could sneak around and do whatever they want, and no one would ever know the difference. So yeah, I thought it was. There you go.
Go on. No, I was going on to someone else. So carry on.
Oh, I was gonna say this is a smart use, I think, of all the characters. Where so obviously Courtney's our main plot. Henry's very much the other important plot in the episode, and then the other characters in the JSA you sort of divvy up here. You've got a couple of them doing some research, which isn't a huge thing. It's like a D plot, but it's just enough to advance the background plot a little bit, and then Yolanda feeds a little bit into the Henry storyline in an emotional way.
Because she's just kind of absent for most of the episode. Once Courtney says they're going to recruit him, she's like, well, I'm not going to be on a team with him there. She kind of vanishes from that point until the interrogation. Because she doesn't show up for the research, obviously, because she's got stuff on her mind and doesn't want any part of it today.
Oh, she's pissed.
Yeah. The other thing we had is Pat explaining why the Goggles didn't know that Dragon King was alive. Because the JSA never actually fought him. He wasn't part of the ISA at that time. It was when he was part of the Seven Soldiers.
That's right.
He was on that team, and that's where they fought him.
There's 8 of you. We always argued about it. What's to argue? There's 8. It's clearly wrong.
They clearly liked Seven Soldiers for the alliteration.
Like, of course you always argued, because some of you were sensible and could count, and the others couldn't. And
who was the 8th who felt like there was one person arguing like, look, I'm clearly the 8th person here. I will not stand for this bullshit.
It's probably Pat.
Probably.
It's probably Pat.
It probably was Pat. Yeah. But we got the knight that's on there. That's obviously the janitor.
Yeah, there's one scene with him actually. He's having like a bit of a hallucination moment where his mop turns into the cosmic staff, or the cosmic rod, sorry, and then he drops it and then it turns back into a mop. So he's having a moment. So
just these kind of memories coming back is I think it's playing with there.
Yeah, I think that probably the biggest importance of it is just to remind the audience, keep all these elements ticking along, so that when he pops back up in a bigger role in an episode or two, it's not going to be as, like, oh yeah, remember him out of nowhere,
like from 3 episodes ago, where he showed up with a sword. It's like, oh yeah, that was a thing.
Yeah, just a little bit, keep it all bubbling over, and everything feels like it's still in the forefront of your mind.
Yeah.
Which,
to be honest, I feel that way about a lot of this episode, and not to say this episode's bad, but I think it's possibly the least exciting episode of the show.
I think
in that I felt like, okay, this is just the next episode, and it was probably like one of the first ones I've really felt that with.
I feel like the last 3 were all really good, right? The last 3 were definitely the peak of the show. 6, 7, 8. Maybe it was 5, 6, 7, 8. Maybe the last 4 actually. Now I'm thinking about it. But regardless, the last little batch have all been the best of the show, and I feel like this kept the overall quality that it's built up, but is inherently not as exciting as the big events that were happening in those episodes. So if this is the new baseline, I am more than happy for the season.
Yeah, like, clearly I'm not really saying a lot of negative things here. I enjoyed it. I felt it's not even the pacing come down. I just felt the excitement turn down over where we'd been for a few episodes. Probably since the Sportsmaster and Tigress episode, I think. This one I felt like, okay, we've really slowed down for an episode here.
I have to say I appreciate that it can go an episode without Courtney in the costume and not feel like they're cheating any of us or anything like that. It just feels like no, like it doesn't have to be in the costume every episode. The pacing allows for episodes, here or there. Hell, I mean, if every other episode was not a costume, let's go fight things episode, that'd be fine. Like,
no, that's true. And let's say it's not really a problem. I think it was just more of a surprise of coming back down to this after, like you say, 3 or 4 like really exciting ones.
Yeah, actually, it occurred to me that one thing I don't think we mentioned when Beth found the tunnels in the house last episode is that she kind of like she basically got close to Grundy and heard like a roar and went nope, and noped it out of there. There's nothing really to say about it all, and it was amusing, and so.
She made a smart choice on that one.
Yes, so no, I thought it was solid. Everything's bubbling over. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe some big stuff next episode. We'll maybe see Brainwave back with the rest of the villains, and I mean,
or maybe you're right, and he does have some sort of amnesia, and his son has to try and like help him remember who he is.
Which would also explain why he doesn't immediately tell them who Courtney is, because right now they don't know.
Yes, Cindy hasn't told them yet. I take it.
No, Cindy's in too much of a. Well, right now she's unconscious, but like, even
beforehand, where she's yabbering through the slot in the door.
Yeah, and it feels in character as well. It feels like she's intentionally keeping that to herself because it's a card to play at some point.
It's a little bit petty. It's a little bit personal, and it is a little bit ambition. Like you say, she needs this for to get ahead later.
Yeah, it's not a stretch for me at all that she's not told her father. It makes sense that later on she can be like, well, if you do this for me, I'll tell you who Stargirl is. Like, I can see that being a scene. Like, and I feel like she's devious enough to have intentionally held that back so she can do that later.
Yeah, it might not pay off for her the way she thinks.
Oh yeah, sure.
But it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's what we do.
Oh yeah, it wouldn't shock me if they all find out some other way and then she tries to play that card. I'm like, yeah, we know.
Yeah.
Back to your room, Cindy. Go away.
Back to your cell.
So no, there you go. That is episode 9 of Stargirl. So we're kind of reaching into the end game of the season here. You know, we got 10, 11, 12, 13. So we got 4 episodes left. Get to the final act, as it were, and it kind of feels that point in the story. If you think about the season as a whole story,
yeah,
kind of feels that we're reaching that point. With Courtney learning who Icicle is, and you know, and I feel like, you know, one of the things we're saying here is that we end on this moment where they have to tell Barbara something, start a next episode. They have just stumbled onto at least a solid bit of speculation that her boss, the one that she has been in very good terms with and has given her a lot of opportunities, is the leader of the villain group. So I feel like that's going to cause some...
She might not take them seriously on that, for sure. And I really like the paranoia of, oh god, is Cameron in on this too? And everything just being incredibly awkward and terrified on her part at the end. Yeah. When they're all leaving. That was good stuff.
Oh yeah, because he hugs her and she's kind of like, yeah, pat.
Yeah, you might be evil. Get away from me.
Yeah. I mean, he claims not to speak Norwegian, so we'll see how true that turns out to be.
I don't know if that necessarily is true. Right now, it feels like he's probably not evil. He feels kind of in the dark. But, I mean, they could swerve us.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe he'll feel betrayed by his father, you know.
Yeah.
Left out in the cold.
I knew you were going there, and I was like, please don't do it.
He felt like his father gave him the cold shoulder.
No, we're moving on. Let's wrap this up.
He walks on the door, he's like, Dad, what time of year is it? And his dad just goes, winter is coming, son. Winter is coming. It covers it and it's crap it out. It's the perfect time for it. Yes, let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. Like is very important on YouTube. You can, of course, get us on the Twitters at mail_fudge for channel updates. If you want to support the show financially, you can do that over at patreon.com/mailfuzztv for as little as $1 per month. And you can keep all the content coming and feel warm and mildly fuzzy in the inside. But otherwise, that is us. And then warm, of course, is the opposite of cold, which is what Icicle is. Yes.
Keep it moving.
I hope when he enters into the final fight at the end of the season, Cold as Ice plays as he's walking in.
Do you know what? That was another thing I kind of remembering now. They're really still yammering on the 90s music. Like, I can't remember what the track was at the start. It was distinctly early mid-90s.
I didn't recognize it, so I'll take your word for
it. I remember it distinctly thinking, oh yeah, they're really going in on this. And they've been doing this all season. Is 90s the new 80s for nostalgia stuff? Are we getting to that point?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I heard that we're supposed to be shifting to 2000s nostalgia, and I'm like, nah, no one's nostalgic for the 2000s. Shut up.
the 2000s still feel like 3 days ago.
It's not even just that. The 2000s just kind of sucked. As far as pop culture goes, the 2000s sucked. So,
to be fair, that's because most of the pop culture is this is a reaction, you know, this post 9/11 response in a lot of the pop culture, which is why there's not a lot of good nostalgia stuff in that.
Yeah, it's grim and grey and boring and stuff. Yeah. So no, we'll just keep the 80s going forever. It's fine. 80s can be nostalgia forever. But yeah, so thank you once again for watching and listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?